thank you so much. We're so excited to be here. I really want to thank Pete for your service too, because as people like you, as we're, if you think about it, and you said, hey, I created the internet, what can I actually do with this, right? Or GPS, or we were the first to invest in a little 3-person startup called Moderna. Those are daunting tasks to think about. And so when we started on this journey about DARPA starting to really think about how can they tap some of the top talent, business, thought leaders and investors, we turn to you, Pete, and thank you so much. And also I want to thank Marty, because I'm really, when I came up here the first time, Pete was like, you got to come up to New York and we're doing this event. And I will tell you, we have to go and do briefings for the Pentagon. We have some really intense, and it was a little bit intimidating to have to come and meet with all of you. And, we got a bunch of called the New York Sharks and really aggressive on the Capitol. And I can't tell you how amazing the conversations we've connected. We've found we've got a couple companies that have come through some of your offices that we've now invested in. We've gotten some great ideas of how we can think about serving both economic and national security with some of the areas that you're thinking of. We were even joking earlier today with Jack and our moderator and Pete about, we're doing a lot on kind of the future of AI and machine learning. Yeah. And we're thinking, we have these SOCOM folks and they have to do all the training. And we're saying, I wonder if you could ever use this for sports, for the sporting teams. And he's like, so Jack Wyeth, So we just want to thank you so much for having us and spending time. So what we're going to do a couple things is, Jen, I think we're working on this. We're trying to get the computer system. Now I'm going to get Brad here.
It's too big.
It's too big?
It's too big to send. No, we have it on my computer. We just want to
Marty,
show a
get the
video.
presentation?
You just share it. Hold on a second here. I got it.
Okay. Thank you. So what we thought we'd do, and I want to give you just a quick introduction.
There it is.
We're going to hit pause for a second. Don't play
It's
quite
not-
yet.
it's not going.
Okay. The sound is off, so we want to.
Right, you can't play sound, or else there'll be an echo.
Oh, there'll be an echo. Okay.
So you just have narrate it.
Okay, we'll just narrate it. Well, we've got a really cool thing. So.
Okay, don't do it.
No, do it. It's a cool picture. So we're just going to give you kind of a high level visual of DARPA. So when everyone thinks about DARPA, this is an agency, and Jen's going to give you some of the background. So we talked about inventing GPS, inventing, some of the Moderna vaccine, inventing the internet, which is everyone says. And so people come to DARPA to change the world. And everyone that comes, top scientists, top technologists, and we got, quantum computing, Siri. That was a DARPA project, started off as a DARPA project. So you're just going to hear, DARPA has no labs inside it. It is a large, about $4.3 billion we spend. Jen's going to go through the agency, and this is just to give you a little flavor. You always think about the big hypersonics, where you hear about the new aerospace platforms. You're going to hear a lot more about what DARPA does and really how we think working with you all can make a difference. Brad, who's advisor, Brad was a former executive at Lockheed, and he spent 20 years running their advanced tech. He works with us very closely, and also has a PhD in computational neuroscience.
That's right.
Okay. And so we have all different types of people that come to join our team. So with that, I think Jen Thabit, I think I joked, so with Heels, we call her a force of nature. And so Jen has been, usually people will tell her inside DARPA to slow down when she talks. She's a native, 45 minutes away from here. And she goes, I speak at the speed of relevancy. And these folks, I can't wait to be here with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen Thabit. She leads all of our small business. And I'm a big fan of Jen. So with that, without further ado, Jen.
Thank you, Shaq. Hi, everybody. So I run our small business programs office. I find new small businesses, fund them, and then get them ready for people like you to pick up and help us transition. So Shaq did a really nice job doing an overview of DARPA. I'm going to just go into a tiny bit more detail because we are a super stealth, super great agency that a lot of people don't know anything about. We are the creative branch of the DoD, But when people think about the DoD, they think about satellites, drones, and whatnot. What they don't think about are things like vaccines. They don't think about PTSD. They don't think about shoe design for soldiers. We pretty much cover the gamut. And I travel the country speaking and trying to find those new niche small businesses. And I tell them there is a home for you at DARPA. We just have to find the right place to go. So DARPA was started in 1958 in response to the launch of Sputnik. That caught everybody by surprise. And it was at that point that the US said, we will never, ever be surprised again. And so with a half a page, literally a half a page of legislation, DARPA was born. Think about today, how long that would take, but it was basically stood up overnight. And our mission is really to prevent and create strategic surprise. We have done so many things that have now become household tools and products, right? And Shaq mentioned some of them, like GPS, smartphones. What a lot of people don't realize is it was a DARPA small business from the 1980s that invented the integrated chip that enables Wi-Fi in our smartphones and our AirPods. The 1980s, and think about when we first got that technology. That is far too long. So what we're trying to do is find these small businesses, and with Shaq's team and her help and this team of advisors, shorten that time for transition, not just for the military, but in the commercial market, right? Dual use technology really is the goal to help us preserve our investment, which is why I'm here today kind of talking with you guys to tell you about some new opportunities that you may not have heard about. DARPA is composed right now of 6 technical offices. They are thrust areas that we are focusing on. We do everything from like biological sciences to systems and tactical technologies. These are our current thrust areas at DARPA, but the way we are structured is our program managers at DARPA. There's a whole team of about 115 to 120 technical program managers. They come and they say, there's a need here. There's something that we haven't discovered. And they really help drive and change these thrust areas. This is our current thrust, but they change from time to time. So as a result, we keep our website up to date. If there's something on here that you have companies of interest, there might be a home. If there's not something on here and you've got a great R&D small business, there still is probably a home. It's a conversation with us to say, hey, have you thought about this need? Okay, so a quick overview of DARPA, and then we'll get to the small businesses. As Shaq said, we are a $4 billion funding agency, and our budget is only one way to go, which is up. In fact, as Shaq was telling earlier, Congress likes to give us more and more money. They always want to double our budget, but we can't do that. We are a small, agile agency, and sometimes more funding without the influx of more people to work it doesn't work. So this is about our sweet spot, but we will likely go up even more next year. We do revolutionary change. We are high risk tolerance. We are one of the only agencies that the director says we don't fail enough. They really want us to push the envelope. And if every program is a success, if every small business does R&D and it turns out there's a there right now, we're probably not leaning far enough forward. So we are the agency where you have these small businesses that you want to kind of de-risk. Is there a there? They come to us and we fund them. Shaq mentioned something earlier that I think is kind of important. We fund businesses, but we don't make anything. We don't build anything. We don't buy anything. We don't sell anything. We don't have labs. What we really do is look at R&D very low on the TRL scale, everything from 0 to 3, and de-risk and see if there's a there with the goal of getting it to that next level.
Jen, what are the DARPA requirements? Do we keep equity sometimes? And what are the sizes of these kind of investments when we challenge our performers?
Love it. That's a great intro to our next slide. So there are 3 different ways that businesses and universities work with us. We do large programs, we do challenges, and then we do smaller efforts. And we fund these businesses. We take no equity. So it's undiluted capital that we are putting into these companies. Our programs run the gamut. Those are larger efforts, could be 5 million, could be 30 million, could even be $100 million of a program. Those are generally with universities, with lots of different business partners. Our challenges run the gamut. Sometimes it's universities, sometimes it's small businesses getting a startup. And then we have our smaller efforts, our seedlings, SIBRs, and explorations. And what I'm going to focus on a little bit today is the SBIR STTR program, because that's a program that we run pretty differently at DARPA. And that's a great way for small businesses that really haven't had a chance to prove themselves to get involved and have us de-risk their ideas, and for investors to come in after we have de-risked them and help take them across the finish line.
And if you might have a small business or a technology in your portfolio that you're considering, you might have one that, and so if you do, we're great to talk with. So you might be looking at something and go, I really think there's something here, or it might be a current group in your portfolio or one that you're thinking or contemplating, and we're here.
So just a quick background on, and I will call it the SBIR, and it's the SBIR and STTR program. I'll call it the SBIR program for purposes of this. It's a congressionally mandated program. It is basically a set aside that every government agency that has to set aside for small businesses. If government agencies have more than $1 billion in funding, they will often have an STTR program. And what it really is designed to do is to stimulate tech innovation, to really have a partnership, everything you see on the screen, and to help small businesses grow and evolve. Dual use technology is really the goal. And what a lot of people don't realize is this program is the largest source of early stage tech financing in the US. It's a great way for small businesses to get their start and to go on to grow. Did you have a question?
It's not necessarily venture capital. It could be any small business.
Okay, so yes, Marty. So basically the small business, to meet the qualifications, has to be 500 people or less, and it has to be US based. But we do, at DARPA, we do have authority to have venture funded companies also participate.
No, we don't care about venture funded companies. There's great companies that aren't venture funded. Great owners.
Yeah.
So yeah. And this is all debt, right? It's not equity, or is it equity?
It's an award, so
it's an award.
non-
It's
non-dilutive.
non-dilutive capital.
Non-dilutive.
It's capital that we give you. So we're DARPA, and we do this program a little different. And I think this program really works well for DARPA and probably for everyone in this room. This program, it works with our program managers coming up with an idea. There's a need, there's a gap, they want to investigate something, and they draft a topic. And I put that topic out on the street for small businesses to propose to. We release topics under a broad agency announcement, and those are basically, we have a problem, we want you to solve it. And we look to the small businesses to tell us how to solve these problems. We are not at DARPA saying, we have a problem, this is how we want to solve it to be solved, and you need to solve it. So we're looking for those creative, outlandish ways to solve problems. And our program managers tie these small business topics to larger programs in the agency. And what that will do is it affords the small businesses that participate in this program a lot of the benefits as if they were working on a much larger government program. They get a big push and help with transition, whether it be commercial or in the government. And we release our topics when they're ready. Not, we don't hold them. Other government agencies hold their topics and release them at specific times. Yes, Marty?
What's the average or median grant size?
Oh, I'm gonna get to that on my next.
Okay.
On my 2 slides from that. Oh no, it isn't my next one. So we'll go. So we release our topics when they're ready, so that we can satisfy the need. Now, the SBIR program, because it's a congressionally mandated program, is capped at certain dollar values. But I will tell you, if you look at the column on the right, I think I'm doing my visual right. These are numbers where we start. These are rarely where we end. So we will give a small business $275,000 undiluted capital for a phase 1 feasibility study. Typically, it's about 10 months, although, as Shaq says, I'd like to move the speed of relevance. I'm shortening that time frame substantially. So it's typically anywhere from 4 to 6 months to do a feasibility study. And while they're doing that, they're working on a phase 2 proposal. We start those phase 2 proposals, they're about 24 to 36 months, and they are about 1.8 million. But again, this is where we start, it's not where we end. While our small businesses are working on their programs, I am busy and Shaq's team is busy marketing these performers to investors, primes, other DoD agencies to co-fund, add more funding, or to line them up to pick them up for transition. Right, at DARPA, we don't have labs. I said that, right? So I need to give them what I call legs to walk out of DARPA so they have life afterwards. Now, we talk about money. The average SIBR budget at DARPA is about $130 million or so a year. That's also where I start, but it's never where I end because I'm a pretty good shopper. I'm from New York. So I go to other agencies. It's true, Marty, right? So I go to other agencies and I take their money because they're not as good at spending it as we are. So by the time we are done with this current fiscal year, my $127 million budget will probably end up being around $160 to $170 million that I am giving to small businesses. Now, that's just out of one pot of money. That doesn't include the money that Shaq's team is bringing to the table or that other government agencies are bringing to the table to fund our small businesses.
So if I could give you one example from an earlier meeting that Marty, again, was terrific, and Dr. Jeffrey Ling from a company called On Demand Pharmaceutical, just imagine almost like 3D printing of any generic drug that you need, especially in times of supply shortage or crisis. He received $82 million of non-dilutive funding from the government. So as Jennifer said, there's a lot of different pots of money there. She's focused on the SIBR for small businesses, but you know, I thought that would be helpful to know what one company got.
Yeah. That's a great, so the process, we try to lower barriers to entry as much as possible, especially at DARPA, because a lot of times our small businesses are 50 people or less, and we are probably their first, second, or third touch point. So I know I have to help them because they have technology that's going to change the world, but they're not good business people. They don't know how to do this. So we try to help them engage with DARPA. We release, as I mentioned, a broad agency announcement, and underneath that, we release topics, and small businesses bid on the topics. There is support through my office, and there's also support through the SBA and local, what are called Apex accelerators, which used to be PTACs, to help proposers bid. But it's basically and I'm going to get to this part too, it's basically a short proposal and a cost proposal and a 5-page commercialization plan. It's not a huge lift for them. And it's about the topics out on the street for about 45 days. So that gives them plenty of time, I think, to write a proposal, especially for a phase 1. But to try to continue to lower barriers to entry, what I have done is I've started a pilot program. I call it SIBR XL. Right now, it is a $4 million award, but it is the largest award in the SIBR program throughout the country from any government agency that has no barriers to entry. You do not already have had to play in the government space to get a SIBR XL. So it is a little bit of a game changer in that respect. And the pilot's really designed to ask the question, if I give you more money, can you get to transition quicker? Right? Remember I said the integrated chip that enabled Wi-Fi was a program from the 80s, right? And we didn't get these wireless headphones. We didn't get all these things until the 2000s. I want to really try to lower that transition timeline. And so what the SIBR XL pilot is designed to do is outline commercialization and transition milestones clearly and give our awardees more money to try to help them transition quicker. The other thing that I have done is I've redesigned our proposal package, that it's a really short PowerPoint and a short white paper for them to submit. The goal was really to try to reach some new performers. I have made 10 awards underneath this SIBR XL pilot, and 8 of the 10 have been to new performers in the space. So the hope is that we will continue to release these XL pilots. I have another topic out on the street right now, and we will eventually be able to grow our awards link to give them even more money. But again, that's where we start with 4 million. It's not where we end because Shaq has already picked up a couple of them for her program.
Yeah. So Jem, one thing you might be thinking, you're like, it sounds like a lot of work to go through all of the, DARPA or DOD work. So DARPA, again, streamlined, we make it simple. We treat like we're really focused on the best ideas. We want to have those scale. So there's not like you miss the submission on August 22nd. So anytime you have a great idea, we get with a DARPA PM, we can post that topic. Typically they can be awarded in less than 6 to 9 months is usually the average, sometimes sooner. but to give you an average, some have been awarded in 60 days, 90 days, it just depends, but that's your average time frame. We really do like to see where they have, I want to call like a commercial use case. Having your involvement really does make a difference.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
So then that brings me to all of you in the room, right? Some of you have small businesses that you're interested in, but maybe you're just not sure that there's a there yet. This is a great, safe way to do it because we de-risk them for you. And once we show there's a there, they can continue to grow. The other way that you guys can get involved is with our small businesses. And all of our small business awards are public. Anything in the silver program, the awards are public, but Shaq's team also she picks the companies that we think have the game-changing technology that need that extra help. And we try to put our small businesses in front of a slew of people to get them as much exposure as possible. Remember I said we don't have labs, we don't make anything. So I give them legs. So what I do is I put our performers in front of other DoD agencies, big primes, small investors, anywhere I can to get them out ahead of their transition timeline. I do a lot of early and often engagement. I kind of make people uncomfortable that I put our performers in front of potential end users or investors before they're ready. Because what we try to do is get feedback from our end users or from our investors on whether the work that we're doing is going to be useful, or if we just had tweaked this one piece of the research, it would get picked up. If we can do that early and often, then by the time they graduate from DARPA, their chances for transition success are greatly improved. I do have a video, but there's no sound, so I can't really show it. So I will just.
Can you narrate it?
I can try to narrate it.
Or we can just turn off sound here and then you could run it from your, I don't know if that's gonna work.
I don't know if it's gonna work either, but
Yeah.
so influent energy.
Raise the volume on that if you want.
Oh, you
On the
think it's gonna
computer.
work?
But the problem is the feedback, not the volume.
Oh,
Can you-
I'll just narrate it for you. So Influent Energy is the company that we funded. I think we started funding them about 2.5 years ago. They're a flow battery company. And we started funding them to try to do the EV revolution. Soldiers are dying more frequently in combat because their vehicle gets shot and it blows up. So can we replace gas? Can we improve battery life? And what Influent Energy has done has designed a flow battery that is an aqueous solution that not only will not burn, but it will put out fires. And we have taken them as part of my transition. We have taken them to South by Southwest, and we have taken them and put them in front of other DoD agencies. And
So the one thing I just want to add to Jen's thinking is this is how we think about DARPA is every other battery. You think about a battery, it's a chemistry challenge. So basically you would have and you need to have high density, you want to go greater distances, and you need to have maybe a very fast rapid charge. So unlike a regular EV battery, this would be, it's liquid as Jen had explained. So you basically are taking all the contents of the battery out at a station and you're refilling that immediately with the liquid chemistry that's already been charged. So it's just a completely different way to think about a battery. So
the implications of this kind of are
you recharge your
limitless.
fluid,
You
yeah.
recharge, so you pull in, and the infrastructure already exists for us to do this. You pull into a gas station, you empty out the old fluid and put in the new fluid. So you are out of there in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours to charge your other vehicles.
That's great.
They were first given a $1.8 million award. Then they received a second phase 2 for $2 million. And that's $2 million and $1.8 million undiluted investment from the government. And I've taken them around the country. And that investment has now turned into another $3.4 million from the Air Force, and then another $2 million in commitments from an agency or an office in the Pentagon that's going to pay to test them. And that is before we get any capital from somewhere outside. And so that's where I say these awards can grow quickly. And so by the time they leave us, their first generation fluid should be well tested and ready for market. But we've also challenged them. Right now it is 2 fluids. Well, one is better than two when we come to thinking about gas stations and when we come to thinking about refilling when we're in theater. So they're working on their second generation, which is one fluid. It combines into one fluid. And then their third generation will be, how do we make this liquid even more powerful so that we can power Navy ships? So we are working with them to try to help them not only de-risk their current idea, but to think beyond that.
And just to clarify, these are all grants. The company owns the IP.
So these are contracts, yep, and and that's a good point, Marty, actually. SBIR, the SBIR program.
What's that?
NREs.
So the SBIR program is actually very favorable for small businesses and investors because their data rights are very favorable. These small businesses have 20 years of data rights. We take government purpose rights, but we do not do anything else with it.
But can you commercialize it, let's say, in the Middle East? What strings attached now?
Shaq. I mean, I'll answer that, but I will have you.
What do you mean as far
I
as
want the
like-
manufacturing in the United States.
Oh,
So-
All the Saudi money now wants manufacturing in the Middle East.
So, okay, I've got a great, speaking of which, we just did a project with a large defense contractor. We had a
Mhm.
small company. They were building these autonomous, very small for the ocean to do like ocean mapping, weather currents. And, you know, they were doing some of the testing with one of the alliances with DIU, which is Defense Innovation Unit. And the defense company had an investment in them, and it made total sense for them to scale up with a capability in the Middle East. So in that case, we worked with the large defense prime and the small business that was awarded funding from DUI, and they're scaling up the manufacturing there. So do we think about this? I mean, like, it's a global economy. We have another thing people don't realize is DARPA, we have performers all over the world. We try to pick the best people. It's very early stage research. Now, when it gets into, do we have to comply with the DoD and all of the CFIUS requirements and all of the ITAR? Absolutely, yes. But we look at things on a case-by-case basis. So I'm just letting you know that just happened, that was 2 weeks ago. So it's a case-by-case basis, and this made a lot of sense.
So you need to apply for CFIUS before you apply to DARPA.
No, so most of our international, so right now, we have, one person was asking me, what's the most craziest program that you guys are working on at DARPA that's in the commercial strategy? And I said, well, when I looked at our portfolio, we're actually investing in hookworms. So we have a performer in New Zealand that's using these hookworms that secrete, and they put them on for wound healing. Now they want to make a synthetic version, obviously. Now that performer's in New Zealand, right? So we have to go with the best talent that's in the world, the best innovation, the best. So we put out a broad agency announcement. We had performers all over the world, and this one they ranked the top, and so we're funding them. So now the question is, now, do we care about making sure that we have access to the technology? Absolutely. We invested US taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure that we have that capability. But, you know, we talked about another technology today. We met with a young woman that is doing some really exciting technology, you know.
Satira.
And so the one thing,
That's
so, yeah, we talked with her about her work.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there it's like we said, hey, you know, we want to make sure that the technology is getting out. So that's the number one thing. But we also have to make sure that our mission at DARPA is to make sure that the DoD has access. So if we don't have access to that, that gets really problematic for us.
So CFIUS is Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States. There's a lot of issues really made more stringent. The focus is China. You know, I think if we're working with Thailand, working with the Middle East, their allies, I think you still want to review every situation, my experience. But, you know, it's more likely Middle East, Thailand, not China. You know,
So we,
just,
yeah, and we
Yeah.
even have a goal like in our program, because we can do follow-on investment. And we say one of our goals or metrics is 0% adversarial capital. And, you know, I was talking to one performer and they were thinking about one of their investors up in New York. You know, I said, well, maybe we have to expand the definition, but adversarial, I said we might have to expand that definition. But adversarial capital means that there is no interest in scaling this technology. It is purely for other adversarial means. And so we are very thoughtful of that. I believe, Marty, you invited our Office of Strategic Capital with the DoD, and they're doing a program with the SBIC where we're gonna have several investment funds that are having the Department of Defense will be putting into their fund structure.
Do your grants only go to American citizens or companies based in the USA, or they can go anywhere?
So
No,
the
okay.
SBIR and STTR program is US-based companies, but DARPA as a whole, our programs, our seedlings, our challenges are
Yeah.
not restricted that way.
Yeah.
So that's why the answer is sort of, it depends, which is never an answer I ever like to give, but it really is sort of a case by case situation.
So the SBIR and the STPR, what percentage of those are university-based or research?
Great
Oh,
question. Great question.
A lot of them. So typically the STTRs, the small business must partner with the university. The small business has to be the lead on these programs, but they partner with the universities. However, that's not to say that they don't get involved in the SBIRs. They do as much with the SBIRs as they do with the STTRs. It is not uncommon for a SBIR, STTR to be partnered with universities. And in fact, I typically recommend that, especially for STTRs, we'll have university professors that are starting their own company, right, a spin out, and then they still partner with the research institution to have access to the facilities and additional research. And that's a really great way for them to get started.
Do you actually have any data on the outcomes of what you've done at this point of your SBIR program?
On the SBIR program.
So the SBIR program is not as good at tracking over the entire program across the government. It's not as good at tracking as DARPA is. So
we'll show you
We'll
some of
show
the
you-
successes that we've had. Most of these have come, you can go to the scorecard. We talked about this. So this is just taking a snapshot. There's about, in this for example, we took, there's about 70 companies. Of those 70 companies, there's 75% of those were SIVers in Jen's portfolio. And this is data that we tracked over the last 3 years, 36 months. So this just is a very small subset. So if you're a DARPA SBIR with an embedded entrepreneur, we've seen tremendous success. And this is so we've, a lot of people now, you could easily say, so they've attracted over, over $500 million in private investment. The other number, we've had 10 M&A activities, and that 449 is only what's publicly reported. So we really think that's probably 2x to what's publicly reported. We, as a federal agency, can't report things that are not or undisclosed, right? It's got to be publicly available. So these have been because it's how DARPA, again, we're taking the best program managers, we're going through that. So they've done really, really well. Zero problematic investment. Now, when we go in front of our internal DARPA director and deputy, we don't get points on the board. They're like, we don't care if you've gotten $2 billion or $3 billion. We care about, does the US DoD have the capabilities they need in the future? So we get graded more on the transitions. You can't see in your screen in here, but we say zero problematic foreign investment. So that really is around China and Russia. And then 16 new companies now selling new products and services. So that means that they went from being awarded, again, Jen was talking about accelerated, that these are new products and services that they're selling. Because part of the hard thing for a small business, and when they're in the SIVR, Jen talked about this. You talked about the golden ticket.
I have not talked about the golden ticket yet.
She's going to talk about the golden
that.
ticket.
Okay.
She'll talk about the golden ticket, but this products and services, that's part of the reason is because they have the golden ticket. So maybe.
And I will say, I have been with DARPA for many years, but I only took on this role 3 years ago. And since I have taken it on and started changing the face of the program, I am seeing the caliber of our small businesses improve. Now we have Shaq, who's the force multiplier, who's been here about a year, right? And
Because I hang out with people like Brad and.
And
Kate
so she's taking these newer small businesses, this new caliber, and really taking to the next level. So I have nothing but expectations that these numbers will go up tremendously over the course of the next several months. But that is a good thing that I didn't get to talk to. So we talked about SIBRs and these awards that are undiluted investment, but there's another benefit to them, because I know these are smaller dollar values maybe than you're used to seeing, right? But I call it the golden ticket. There's two different ways that these small businesses can leverage these SBIR awards. One is through a second phase 2. Every company is allowed to have up to 2 phase 2s for an SBIR or an STTR. They can be sequential, they can be concurrent, which I do a lot of times at DARPA, or they could be years apart. So if a small business that you're interested in, right, or that's in your portfolio has ever had an SBIR, let's say from another government agency, from NSF, and it never got to that next level because the other government agency maybe is a little more risk averse than we are. As I said, our director says we don't fail enough, right? She wants to take on that high risk. That small business can go to another government agency and say, hey, I have this SBIR, I'm eligible for another phase 2. Or if they've only had a phase 1 and never got to phase 2, and another government agency can pick them up and help them to continue to develop their R&D. There's no competition. Competition has already been satisfied. The other part of this is if the small business has already had a phase 1 and both of their phase 2s, they're still eligible to be picked up without competition for what's called a phase 3. A phase 3 is non-SBIR dollars. So we talked about that my budget is a set aside budget in the agency. They can take their SBIR to the agency they got it from or to another government agency and say, I did an SBIR and you can pick me up for a phase 3. Competition has been satisfied. All they do is put together a little proposal, a short technical proposal and a cost proposal, and they can be awarded like that. They do not have to compete with other people to get the money. It is already been satisfied.
Jen, can, maybe we could ask, no, but if there's a lot of rigor in that, and maybe we can ask, so we ask, I'm gonna call on Brad. So in your previous life, I know you're not speaking on behalf of DARPA, but in your previous life, running advanced technology for Lockheed Martin, when you were looking at some of these small companies, talk to us about what do you think are some advice for the audience when they're thinking about their companies teaming with a defense contractor, sure, and why this is valuable to have that going through that competition. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Shaq and Jen. So one of the key roles is an SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research Grant, and that's a congressionally mandated set aside. So as an OEM, which is original equipment manufacturer, is a large defense contractor, and really any government contracts, but in this case, defense contracting, you're required to participate in this program to help these small businesses find a market exit for their products, right? Because most of the time, they are very, very, very skilled entrepreneurs, scientists, innovators who have really no capacity, both from a capital perspective to invest in their team, or even the natural skill set to go out and find the way to get into their product in the customer's hands. So what I would do as a Lockheed Martin program manager, I would be looking at the SBIRs, and they might either contact me most often, or I might reach out to them and say, hey, you've got a very interesting, novel, solid state cooler, and I've got a laser that runs hot in a small package. I'm just totally making this up. But I could say, I would like to figure out how to get your cooling device integrated into my system. And so through the SBIR program, they are actually the prime contractor on that relationship. So they sort of hold the keys to the direction of travel for how they're going to work with Lockheed Martin. Now, the nice part about my end is I've got 60,000 scientists and engineers in my contact list. So if they run into a snag or a problem, I can call up on one of my guys and say, hey, can we get a meeting together with this company? They're struggling. We'd like to integrate the system. And in some cases, especially when I was more senior, I had a budget. I could actually write an internal research program for them to go out and work with the small companies. So the SBIR was a really, really low risk way as a large company to get in-depth understanding of that technology. And while sitting on the venture capital board for the company, we might actually want to invest in that company because we've seen it, we've worked with them, it's got good tech, and we want to have a more ownership stake in where it's going. So to be fair, this was an amazing force multiplier for all of my entire technology strategy.
Awesome.
How do you publicize the DARPA services? I mean, the SBIR program? How do people find out about you?
On the website.
Besides Pete.
Besides, okay, well, there's,
Well,
I just heard like four
Marty
different
now
ways,
is
there's lots of
part the
different
club,
ways,
right,
yeah.
Marty? Yeah.
So we do keep our website up to date. I know not everyone likes to come through our website. We do also post our topics. SBIR topics for the DoD are posted on the Defense Cyber Innovation Portal. It's called DCIP, and those go out. We also have a brand new service offering, which I also run, called DARPA Connect. And that is a partnership intermediary agreement with the Applied Research Institute. And basically, we have brought them on board as a nonprofit venture to help lower barriers to entry for new non-traditional performers.
So if I wanted to understand what's the email address I can do, like what's my help desk?
She's like
It's
my
like my
Vanna.
DARPA help desk, right? I'm your
Yes,
Vanna
you're my
today.
Vanna. Let's turn
Jen,
this
I'm
letter.
trying to help you.
It's super easy. It's called DARPA Connect at DARPA.mil.
Why wouldn't you promote this through public universities?
We do that as well.
So
We
like,
do that. So we do a lot of outreach. We actually just completed a tour across the country a few months ago called DARPA Forward. And the purpose of DARPA Forward was to go to areas we maybe don't have as much of a stake in, that haven't played with us in the past, and get them excited about DARPA, to teach them what we do. And where DARPA Forward left off, DARPA Connect picks up. We are doing regional pop-ups throughout the country, but we are also getting ready to launch an online curriculum that's going to launch this summer. That's teaching people everything from how to understand a broad agency announcement, how to shred that BAA, how to write a proposal, to even how to engage with program managers, or how to read and prepare for a contract. But that's not enough. It's not enough because reading and observing is one thing, but there's a huge value on having those conversations. So the other component that is coming with that is a mentoring program where my DARPA Connect staff are going to our broad agency announcement proposers days, learning about the topic and meeting with all the people that go to learn about our topics, and then doing one-on-one consultations for them to really help them learn how to work with DARPA. My goal is really to find those people that have these great ideas, but really have no idea how to engage. Or as I said, our companies are 50 people or less. A lot of my SBIRs are 4 people. These are 4 scientists, 4 researchers.
Moderna was a 4-person startup when we invested in them. Moderna, 4-person, we found them. And that's why we say, pardon me? Yeah, well, we had done a program, we had done a program around blood. And that's what it started with. And, it was a failed program because, it ended up costing like $40,000 units. And we said, what else could you do with some of this platform? Well, maybe it might be helpful for vaccines. So that's like, and there happened to be, because of this outreach, we had a small, little team, and they said, hey, we have a great idea. And they talked to that program manager, and that's how that happened.
Nice question. This might not be exactly in your universe, but I saw on 60 Minutes.
Oh, yeah.
That, they were saying
Yes.
that a bolt that used to cost $300 is now costing the defense $10,000. And they said, well, how is this possible? Why are we letting this happen? The government's getting soaked. And they said, well, back in, I'm not going to say whose administration, they decided it'd be better for the defense companies to merge. So there is absolutely no competition. Can you in fact say, gee, this is ridiculous. Why don't we go to XYZ? Why don't you manufacture a bolt? And even if it's $600, we're doing a lot better than 10 grand. It's something like that. But I'm just wondering if that's.
So
Bureaucratic capture,
So that's the example. So DARPA PMs come to DARPA to fix those types of problems.
Yep.
They also come to fix why should it take 32 days for cement to cure? So someone said it's a problem trying to land helicopters or I need to land a plane somewhere. And they're like, I don't have 32 days to wait for the cement to cure. So that was a DARPA program manager. So the whole thing is you're trying to come there to solve the problem. Now, how the execution goes, there's other groups that we work with to help.
Can you please repeat again,
The what,
contact
can you
information?
go to that slide? Do you have it on?
Which
on
slide?
DARPA
DARPA
Connect?
Connect.
DARPA Connect at DARPA.mil. I do not have it.
And that's for somebody who has a technology that they want to bring forward.
Yep,
A new idea, they want to,
If you just Google DARPA.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you do Google DARPA Connect, you'll get it. but-
that's just our main website. I was
Yeah,
trying to see if
think
I have a
that's it.
slide.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and so that cement's a great example, right? And one of the things behind that was dust abatement. Helicopters die 6 times faster in theater because of all the dust that is kicked up.
Yeah.
And so what we did was kind of look at a biocement company. And they are working on these biocement bricks, but they can also pave a runway, which I believe it's 48 hours to
Yeah.
cure. And that doesn't eliminate all of the dust abatement, but it gets rid of the majority of it to help our helicopters preserve that investment. But if you think that's the military application, but there's a lot of commercial applications.
So you're
that
saying,
can Go hand in
to
hand.
follow up on that, you're saying that building materials is something that would be
Yeah.
important.
Yep, and we'll be around afterwards, so we'll be happy to take any questions. I know we don't want to stand in the way of anyone between their
And cocktails.
Oh,
coffee,
we're doing-
cocktails or anything, I guess.
About 10 minutes left. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and so to that end, right, I'll close kind of as I start, and then we can answer a couple more questions, right? When you think about the DoD, most people think about satellites, drones or whatnot, but we really run the gamut, right? From vaccines to biocement.
We're trying to take, break down the composition of garbage to create protein.
Food.
We have plants as sensors. I mean, so it's just like, if you think about it, for security, troops would need to have food. So if you're in a remote place, how could you have food, for example? And what could you use that's already existing there? We think about space-based manufacturing, like if you wanted to set up, and how would you get like large structures up to space and do that? So we come up with, all sorts of different
So
ideas.
I have a little trivia for everybody since
Oh,
you
yeah.
listened to the presentation. Because you always hear about big government and so on. I think it's the best organization, the federal government. So here's the trivia question. I'm biased, of course, right? How many full-time employees are there at DARPA?
Oh, I didn't.
5,000?
Anyone?
I mentioned how many program managers we have.
But
How many?
215.
That's why I-
215. 215.
15 program managers.
115 program managers, I think 215 total employees.
Yeah, full-time
That's
employees.
215 employees, $4.3 billion budget, the best technology in the world coming out of there.
That's why it works.
Exactly, great point. That's why Jen mentioned, maybe not everyone picked up, but you're exactly right, sir. Double your budget. No, that doesn't, bigger isn't always better.
This is the problem we have to add everywhere.
But what it does
Well,
mean
we-
is that our program managers are accessible. Unlike other government agencies where it's a black box and you don't know who does what, or there's 10 people doing the same things and they don't even know each other. We keep our website up to date. You are encouraged to figure out what program manager is in your R&D area and reach to them. And they are required to respond back to you if you send them an email. Some are 48 hours, some are a week, but we get our ideas from those conversations. So small businesses, investors coming, they could be giving them their idea for their next SBIR, their next challenge, or their next, large program. But that's where a lot of our ideas come from. It's an agency that is very approachable, which is so counterintuitive, I know, to what people think of for the federal
But I
government, but
think
this
there is
is.
something else that you guys are doing that is fantastic. And that is, these entrepreneurs come in, they have a lot of passion about it.
Mhm.
If you don't show your passion about it, it doesn't go.
Right,
Yeah.
it's the culture, culture.
Absolutely, and that's what you go to government agencies, I mean, it's very difficult to get.
You're right.
No passion, no passion.
Yeah.
Hey, great point, great point.
Program managers turn over before you.
I need to build a gateway to your company through my website, because I think it'll, to your group, I think it'll help people. 'Cause I've had people reach out to me, I'm a scientist, I spend
Yeah.
$1 million on 25 patents, I'm an immigrant, I don't know anything. I need
Yeah.
to get liquidity from it, and now I just went to a banker, he took all my money, nothing happened. But if he knew about DARPA, he might have gone to you guys first
Yeah.
and looked for a grant before.
And I
doing
will say,
20
I have
plus.
been partnering with the DoD
Yeah.
Office of Small Business Programs to help them sort of get more on the same page that we are on, to become more approachable. They have new leadership there, and they are trying to do their own outreach campaign throughout the country to help people understand that there's opportunity there for them to get involved.
So what's the craziest thing you guys have brought to market?
Oh, boy.
Oh, internet's pretty crazy.
I just love the pharma in a box. I just think that's.
Stealth bomber is pretty cool. I'll say, what was fun for me last week is a pilot that's been in the military for 20 years, spoke to the group last week. There was that, and the gentleman was an F-16 pilot, stealth bomber pilot. He was like a jackrabbit jumping around the room. He had so much energy. But to have someone, just imagine that, flying, being a pilot for a stealth bomber. To have someone in your organization with that kind of background and that excitement, still jumping around with technology, I was like, this guy is so cool. I want to have a beer with him tonight and just hang out. It was like such a great experience.
Yeah, one important cultural aspect that keeps it so fresh is the DARPA program manager is only there for between 4 and 5 years. So every year, 20 to 25% of the program managers are turning over. So new people are coming in, and that's by design. No one stays more than that unless they're doing some totally different job. But that's really an important aspect. They've got 4 years from the day they walk in to accomplish that mission. So they're highly motivated.
So and I'm permanent, but what I tell the program managers,
So this is the motivation of a permanent employee. Imagine what the other ones are.
When I brief these new program managers, my first question is, so what's your exit strategy? And they go, what? I said, if you haven't thought about your exit strategy and what programs do you want to develop and where you want them to transition, you may as well not be here, because you want to build your programs and line up their transition, line up where they're going to go, so that when you leave, the program successfully transition and are not given to someone else and they are morphed and changed. It is what kind of makes DARPA so special and so unique. I will say if I have time for one more closing thing, Marty, there is one other thing, because we do all these innovative things. We have a brand new pilot program. It's called Bridges. So some of the challenges that small businesses have and that we have is we have work that's really, really important.
So take, for example, cybersecurity, right? So you've got security software and you're trying to get data sets to go test that on, right? Or it might be some type of security on financial services, right? Or identity theft, or, even have things on deep fakes. DARPA's working on deep fake technology, right? And you want to have access to certain data or big data sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we bring on small businesses to help us, but then we get to a point where it's a lot more serious than we thought, and we have to go classified. And it knocks these small businesses out. And that's not good, right? Because at DARPA, we fund about 29% of our budget to small businesses, because they're the innovative risk takers. They're the ones that are going to take us to that next level. And then we are knocking them out and they can't help us. So Bridges asks the question, if we can get these small businesses cleared for specific areas, can they help us push that technology needle forward? Can they really help us innovate? And instead of taking calculated bottom line risks that some of these, bigger companies would take, these small businesses push the envelope and really get us to that next innovative idea. So we have a pilot out right now that we are clearing specific small businesses, right? And once a small business gets a clearance, they have access to even more work in the DoD. We will see how this is going. Our first 2 topics are on the street for small businesses to apply to clear them and help them get work with us. Antennas is the first one, and I do not remember the second, but I'll tell you over cocktails when we go to dinner.
Fantastic. Last question.
Just want to say it's important to know that you don't work alone. That people at NIH, NCI are working closely with you to help you find the science, the small businesses that you're funding.
Yes, they are my transition partners, and they co-fund with us as well. ARPA-H is a new agency. You guys might have heard of that one that just stood up. They're sort of a sister agency for us. I partner with them on a whole bunch of efforts. So kind of what that means is I take their money and I fund our DARPA programs, but I know they're gonna go over there afterwards. But yeah, we work very closely with other federal
And it's important because
agencies.
Bob Cedar at NIH,
Mhm.
who developed Moderna with your funding, but he found the funding with David Wield, who's a member of this group
That's
And
so
his-
cool.
Yeah.
in
awesome.
Nashville, Tennessee now. He had been on Park Avenue, but I met, well, I went to school with him, but I met him at the Opal family office meeting. I met him here.
Really?
And
See, that's-
he told me
So-
about SBIR and DARPA.
It's a great story.
That's
Yeah.
a great. And that's, you know,
It's a small group of
Well,
people,
and-
these things happen.
I think
It really
Marty,
is.
That's right now.
Marty too, it's like, you know, we talk about the family offices and the venture and in this regional capabilities. And that's one of the reasons why when I held up that scorecard, that's because of people like that are here. And it's like, what can you think of that you want to do next? And how do we do that together? So. Huge, thank you.
Fantastic. Great job, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.